Ports region. Through cultural programming, advocacy, and community building initiatives, TPAC fosters belonging and meaningful connections among APIDA individuals and allies. We're going to hear this morning from Jennifer and Pakou, both board members of TPAC, about the information of what they're up to lately and how we can get more involved. So please join me in giving a warm, hearty welcome to our presenters this morning, and thank you so much for being here.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. We'll start with introductions. My name is Jennifer Lien. I am a founding member of the Twin Ports APIDA Collective. I was born in Hong Kong, raised in Singapore, came to the United States as a college student, and then more or less have stayed here since, and now work and live in the Twin Ports and raise my children, who are 12 and 15 here in this community. I've been in Duluth for 12 years now. Yeah. Pakou?
Good morning, I'm Pakou Ly, and I'm also a founding member of the Twin Ports APIDA Collective. I've been here in the Twin Ports for 18 years. Both of my husband and I have been pretty involved in the community. We have 5 children who have really enjoyed their, formative years here in the Twin Ports. And let's see what else. I've got a background in communications, government relations, and I'm so happy to be able to be part of this, organization that's doing a lot more advocacy and reaching out to our community, sharing their voices, our culture, and history. Thank you so much for inviting us today.
So let's, I thought we would start with a little quiz. Rapid fire little questions here. Which BIPOC community in the United States is least likely to feel that they are accepted for their racial identity in the United States? Yes.
Just a little, if the quiz is given by you, it must be the Asian Pacific community.
Well, close. We are the second most likely to be feeling that we are accepted for. So a lot of the stuff is coming from this report that is done every year, and the only group that feels less accepted for its racial identity in the US would be the Middle Eastern and North African community. So, all right, can you name an event or policy related to Asian Americans? Terrorists? Tariffs. Ooh, tariffs. That, I would say, global, and Asian countries are very much affected by that. What about Asian Americans? Those of us who work and live here. The Chinese Exclusion Act, good one. Can you name a famous Asian American? Kamala Harris, thank you, wonderful. We love her, yeah. Proud Desi American. Can you name an Asian holiday or celebration? Tet, which is the Vietnamese New Year and celebrated at the same time as many East Asian communities, but not all Asian communities celebrate the New Year at the same time. So I really appreciate your being specific and using one particular term to acknowledge the Vietnamese New Year here. Wonderful. So there is this survey called the Status Index Survey that is organized by the Asian American Foundation, which is a fairly new nonprofit in the United States, but a really high profile one that started during the pandemic. And it shows that Asian Americans are among the least likely to feel strongly that they belong here in the United States or that they are accepted for our racial identity in the US. 38% of us completely agree that we belong, while only 18% of us agree that we are accepted in the United States as, belonging here in the United States. For those of us who don't feel that we are fully accepted, places such as social media, workplaces, neighborhoods, and schools, colleges, and universities all feel the least welcoming. And for those of us who don't feel that we belong or are accepted, 60% have previous experiences of discrimination or violence, and 30% say that they don't see people like them in positions of power. So representation is an issue. And how do we break out of that? There are things that aren't being done, I think, robustly enough to sort of break this cycle. A majority of Americans are unable to name a single event or policy related to Asian Americans. So Chinese Exclusion Act, Japanese incarceration and concentration camps during the Second World War, those are major, major American events that many children grow up in the school systems never having heard a whiff about. And they are American stories. 4 years after this original finding made waves, more than half of all Americans, 52%, still can't name a famous Asian American. When people are named Jackie Chan, who is not American, Bruce Lee, who died over 50 years ago, and Kamala Harris are the most common responses. Half of Americans can't name a favorite movie with an Asian American character. But Americans do want to see more Asian Americans in dramas and comedies. So, Crazy Rich Asians, I think, was sort of the biggest Hollywood event that sort of has begun to turn the tide for representation in Hollywood. And we're grateful. 50% of Asian Americans feel unsafe in at least one type of public space: public transportation, schools, neighborhoods, local markets, voting spaces. 78% feel we don't belong or are accepted. And, of the large ethnic groups, this is the smallest percentage. And as the pandemic showed, and we'll talk a little about that because that's the reason why TPAC exists today, was because of events that happened during the pandemic. We continue to experience hate and expect to experience discrimination. In the past year, nearly 1 in 3 Asian Americans have been called a racial or ethnic slur. Nearly 3 in 10 Asian Americans were verbally harassed or abused in the last 12 months because of their race, ethnicity, or religion. That includes members of my own family. And while most generic Americans don't think that hate towards Asian Americans has increased, we don't agree. Only 1/3 of Americans think hate towards Asian Americans has increased. And since 2021, people are increasingly feeling like, oh, those Asian Americans are treated fairly. But, I've given you some of these in the last slide, some of the statistics that counter that perception. And for subgroups, the numbers are even higher. So Southeast Asian Americans, of which there are many refugees in that subgroup, have higher incidences of being called a slur, being harassed or abused, and threats of physical assault just over the last 12 months. And 41% of Asian Americans think that we are likely to be the victim of a physical attack. And almost 60% of us feel that it's somewhat likely that we will be a victim of discrimination in the next 5 years. And if you think about the current geopolitical atmosphere, you can sort of understand why many of us do not currently expect to be feeling safe in this country. How do we decrease these attitudes of racism against APIDA people? So again, from this survey of Asian Americans, 41% of us feel strongly that we need to teach these histories in K through 12 schools. Our youth should know about things like the Chinese Exclusion Act and the Japanese incarceration, the secret war in Laos, the Vietnam War, which, over there they call the American War. Those types of things are deeply embedded in the American story, but are invisible. Visibility of us, we are often known as the invisible minority group, and there's a lot of deep reasons for that. Some of us disappear into assimilate into white spaces, others go underground. Many of us don't want to rock the boat as recent immigrants. All things that affect this issue. 39% say provide more opportunities to interact with Asian Americans. And Pakou, one of the things you love to say is, we are your neighbors, we are your coworkers, we live among you. And often people still do think of people that look like us as an other group, but we are in fact here. And for us to kind of break down some of the barriers between our ability to communicate across groups will be always helpful. So here we are. I'm going to hand this over to Pakou.
So as we think about the national rhetoric, we hear about stories that are happening all over the country, the fear mongering that's happening. One of the reasons why we have our Twin Ports APIDA is because that sense of fear, that sense of not belonging, those racial incidences, they happen here in this community as well. And just so that you all get a sense, our APIDA community is made up of over 43 different Asian countries. And so definitely, you know, when people look at us, they, you know, we hear the common, oh, you guys all look the same, I can't tell you apart. Well, we represent 40 plus different countries, from Taiwan to Mongolia to Micronesia, Polynesia, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Singapore, Bhutan. So, you know, when you think about the APIDA community here, it's quite expansive as far as who's represented. And you can see that in the textile display that's here in your sanctuary now. So here in Duluth, we know that based on the 2020 census, the APIDA population makes up 1.8% of the total Duluth population. 5.4% of APIDA are recognized as one or more races. You see some of the images here of just some of the gatherings that we've had. And to take you back into kind of the origins of our organization, we were feeling just really apprehensive, very, you know, concerned about our safety, concerned about safety within our neighborhoods. And when stories started coming out, the media, of course, reached out and they wanted to hear from different APIDA members. So back in May 2020, it's one of the first times that the local media started bringing attention to some of the hate crimes that were happening to APIDA members. And of course, that triggers a lot of feelings of our community members here who have suffered through bullying, you know, racist incidences as they were growing up here in the area. We started realizing that we had a lot more to contribute. We could not stay silent anymore. It was very easy to just kind of, you know, stay in the background. But as more and more incidences were happening across the country, we realized, you know, we have to raise our voices, because the more silent we become, the more invisible we become. And we could not do that because it would be a disservice to our community. It'd be a disservice to our children that we're raising here. And for that to perpetuate, you know, as they're growing up, we just really could not stand for that. So we started making our voices known through, you know, local media channels, letters to the editor, just really letting folks know that, you know, we're here, but we're not okay. We seem okay, but if you got to know us, you would know that things are not well in the community. What really, really shook us was the February 2021 killings in Atlanta. It really brought attention to, you know, femicide, the identification of, Asians as, and specifically spas and salons as being, centers of sexual activity, because that's often kind of the myth, right? These spas are kind of avenues for sexual activity, which I think really got missed in some of the attention that was given to the person who was committing the crimes. So our group decided that we needed to make a public stance, and to, our surprise, hundreds of people came out to this vigil that was organized back in March, and it really bolstered our, our inspiration. It really bolstered our, strength, and we decided at that point, we need to do more. We need to form a much more organized group. And then we launched the Twin Ports APIDA Collective in April of 2021. It's the first time that an APIDA organization has ever been created here in the Twin Ports, aside from, the university and colleges that have student groups. And these are some of our founding members that you can see here. We, of course, wanted to come out of the shadows and introduce ourselves, which was very, concerning for some of us, because it was, I think for some of us, it was just safer to not be in the limelight. And from there, some of the reception was very positive, and one of our first significant partnerships was with the Duluth Art Institute. And through several grants at the state and from private foundations, we were able to put together and curate this 2-month-long art exhibit called Like Me, Like You, where we really wanted to showcase who we were through art, through storytelling, multimedia avenues. We had podcasts, we had videos, we had poems, photography, textiles, and I know some of you were able to attend that event and learn a lot more from us. And I think it was a really significant time for us to say, hey, we're reaching out to you, to the community, and we invite you to come to get to know us on a much more personal, intimate level. Intersections, which is a program on PBS North, did a really beautiful, put together a very beautiful segment, and you can see it if you go to the PBS North website and look for Intersections, back to, I think it was probably April of 2021 that they put this together, and it was just a beautiful piece that we are so appreciative of, because it really put together, the kind of the behind the stories behind some of the pieces that you may not get if you were walking around. Our current board, these are our current board members. We've got Julia, Jennifer, myself, Julie, Kim, Vianne, we've got Kim, some of whom you've seen here at the UCC Church for different events or out in the community. And you'll continue to see more of us as we move forward, as we develop more planning, look at more outreach opportunities and education opportunities. And of course, as an organization, one of the most important things is to create your mission and values. And so our mission is to build solidarity among us, awareness in the community around us, and equity for all of us. And that is our shared values of embracing differences, dismantling systems of oppression. Our values are inclusion, diversity, equity, awareness, leadership, and solidarity. And of course, we're all very aware that DEI is being attacked in full force at all levels of government and also nonprofits. So our vision, for our community as well as for the broader community is really to look at, how we embrace and share our cultural heritage, but also respect the the diversity within the APIDA community as all itself. Because having grown up in China doesn't mean that you have the same cultural upbringing as somebody who was raised in Laos, for example. So we want to make sure that we take care of each other and respect each other's diversity. We also want to make sure that we're cultivating understanding. There's a lot of APIDA history that's not taught here, but there's also a lot of APIDA American history and experiences that are not being recognized. The Japanese internment, how Japanese soldiers were basically forced to fight. In the Japanese Americans were forced to fight during World War II, but without any sort of recognition. And they continued to face racism as they were fighting alongside Americans. We also want to make sure that we build a foundation that has capacity to sustain forward the work that we're doing. We want to, not just build a better future for APIDA members, but we want to make sure that, for folks who want to have a future, that they choose the Twin Ports. And we do a lot of that through working with our college students to make sure that they know that there's a welcoming community here, there's a strong APIDA community, and it benefits the Twin Ports. We have that, that younger generation who wants to build a life here, because we know we're going to need that skill, we're going to need that energy if Duluth wants to continue to grow. Of course, we also want to make sure that we've got a very, a welcoming community for all. And we're engaging with the APIDA community, but we're also going to continue to interact and engage with the broader Twin Ports community as well. And we're not going to stay quiet. We feel that we have we've got vibrancy, we've got energy. We want to make sure that our voices are heard, and we're going to do it in different ways, but we're also going to build alliances with other BIPOC communities as well.
So we have on either active membership or our mailing list 180 people, which actually flabbergasts me, because I was here for 6 or 7 years thinking that there was only a handful of people who identify as Asian American in our two cities of Duluth and Superior. And then when we formed, all these people came out of the woodwork that, there were many conversations along the lines of, how long have you been here now? 17 years, how come I've never ever met you? And I think it just goes to show the invisibility that we feel. That's very typical of the Asian American experience. And some of these include allies like you all. So thank you for engaging with us. Some of the activities we have a couple of big activities that we lean into to raise visibility and to enable a sense of celebration among us. The Dragon Boat Festival is one that we've been a part of for 2 years. Prior to our involvement, we were invited by the Dragon Boat Festival to get involved. Prior to that, there had been no cultural component to the Dragon Boat Festival. It was essentially run by the Rotary in Superior. And what we did when we came in was we set up a cultural tent. So now when you go to the festival, next to the registration tent is, you'll have bites of food, sticky rice, which is a part of the Dragon Boat myth, or, well, actually, no, that's a historical story. And also, story time for children. So you go, bring your little ones. There will be people reading stories with you. We also assembled the very first local all-Asian Dragon Boat team. And this has been an amazing way for us to bond, because team members have to stay all day, so we just have a tent with, all day potluck, and that is maybe the most FaceTime our community gets all in one day, where we're just hanging out by the water and just, gabbing and welcoming our friends and allies to come share this time with us. We have member visioning retreats for our APIDA identifying members so that we can identify things that we really feel are important to our community. So we also kind of delve deep inside us to figure out what's important for those of us who do identify as APIDA in this community. Every year we cook for our college and high school students to welcome them back. So we do that in conjunction with the Moon Festival in the fall. And this is a time that, we've got a lot of feedback from our students that they really appreciate basically this group of elders who come around them and warmly welcome them, and hopefully they feel that they can connect with us during the rest of the year. Another big event is our Lunar New Year celebration, which this past year we held here. Thank you so much for the generosity of your hosting. And this is open to all in the community, and it's become, 100 over people just celebrating. It's a potluck, which is the best kind of gathering, even in the Asian community, and we get all sorts of different cuisines featured, and it is just a glorious celebratory time. This last year, we got a grant from Save the Boundary Waters to take 2 groups of APIDA identifying members out into the Boundary Waters. If you know a little bit about BIPOC communities are hesitant to go out into the wilderness. We feel often unsafe. We did not grow up, doing these things, so we don't have the skills, and these are barriers that the grant helped us to overcome, and we have among us a wonderful guide, Sam Armacost, who's Japanese American, who really just curated trips with, instead of, the packable reconstituted food, like we brought things over there. We made spam musubi, we made bulgogi, our food packs were very heavy, but over just, ethnic dishes of ours, we were able to share our stories, and that kind of bonding. I went on that trip. Paku's husband went on that trip. It was unforgettable. We're so grateful that we had that opportunity. And then since the election, we really felt like we needed more just small scale FaceTime. So we've started monthly community breakfasts just for our community to show up and be ourselves and not have to put on a front and just be able to talk about our fears, because our community is not okay. Our community is fearful. People are disappearing. People are, fearful of leaving the country. People with, particular sounding ethnic names are especially feeling like they could pop up on a database, and, and then what happens? So just to be able to see one another, because as you know, gathering here every weekend, when you see one another, you feel bolder, you feel safer, you feel more connected and more supported. All right, Pakou, I'll give this back to you.
So of course, with any organization, you want to bring your mission to life. You want to take action on it, and we've done that through many, many opportunities. We've mentioned before working with the college students and their organizations, reaching out to them, inviting them to a space that they've never been invited to before. And a lot of them are here from other countries. They're here from outside of the Twin Ports, and so they miss home. And so we just wanted to remind them, hey, we're here. We can be your home away aunties that will take care of you if you need anything. We've also done it through multiple presentations and educational opportunities. In the first year that we were organized, I think we did a presentation, probably 2 presentations every single month in the first year. So we really appreciate that, because it was a great way for us to just kind of remind folks that these issues are relevant nationally, but also locally. We've also had just, wonderful support and sponsorships for to be part of the League of Women Voters and the film festival that's held here in the Twin Ports. We also support the Hmong New Year, which prior to our organization, the Hmong New Year has been the only consistent APIDA event that's been held, for almost 2 decades here in the Twin Ports. So that's pretty significant. And despite the fact that the Hmong community is dwindling, there's still great passion to keep that event going. We used to have like 200 Hmong members here. Now we're down to maybe 50 people, and that's not including the students. So it's a huge endeavor, but the organizers continue to put it on every year because the community welcomes it. We are also trying to partner with organizations in the Twin Cities because we know that the issues that are happening in St. Paul legislatively also affect us in the Twin Ports. And so we do that through the Coalition of Asian American Leaders. They've also been up here to do a listening session with our community as well. We are also part of Norspan's Welcoming Community Initiative. We've engaged with the racial bias audit through the Duluth Police Department, and of course, we've got members who are part of the Education Equity Committee through ISD 709 here, and multiple other opportunities. We are a volunteer group, and all of us have jobs and families, but we are out there. We're doing the best that we can to engage in as many opportunities as we can. So part of the process was also that we felt was necessary was for our organization to become a nonprofit. And so through multiple steps, multiple iterations, we put together our bylaws and articles of incorporation, and with help from the Spot Law Firm, we became a nonprofit in December of 2024. So we're in the process of strategic planning, creating a funding model, and also building our internal capacity. So right now, TPAC we're still doing the same things: advocating, connecting, bringing about meaningful change, fostering belonging, creating opportunities for growth, and of course, raising our voices. But what's on the horizon is a strategic plan that really encompasses the needs and wants of the APIDA community that they've expressed to us. And that's, of course, through some of the retreats that we've had, some of the community conversations. Our current board members are not going to serve forever. So of course, we're also looking at transitioning and bringing on new board members with different ideas and different energy. We're going to do our best to, strengthen our community through these, breakfasts. We've got, everybody's facing something different, different fear of, that's part of their APIDA, ethnicity. We want to be able to be there for our community. And of course, we can do that with support from allies, from other BIPOC communities, from churches, which have been just wonderful. That welcoming hand, the arms around the shoulder. It really does make a difference as to our sustainability. And so for a lot of people, they ask, well, what can we do? How can we support you? One of the most critical things is to educate yourself. There are a lot of resources out there. We can certainly send you to resources, but really it's about getting to know us, reading about us, attending events, help us with advocacy and issues. Reach out to any APIDA members that you see in your community, on your street, on your block. Obviously, you can become a donor now that we're 501c3. We can always accept donations, but you can also become a member. You can become an ally member of TPAC. And we're always welcome, we're always open to coming back to speak to you if you'd like to, invite us back and focus on a different topic, for example. This impacts children in so many ways. Jennifer's children have experienced different types of racism, as they've grown up through here in Duluth. My children have also experienced situations where it's been very demoralizing, very frustrating for them as to how they deal with it. My 12-year-old, he continues to remind me, Mom, I'm getting so tired because somebody's, it seems like every week or every other week, someone's saying something to me that just sounds so racist. So we want to make sure that we, protect our children and teach them. And of course, we are going to, like we've mentioned before, if you give us the space, you will learn from us. And so all we ask is for space and for time. We have a very wonderful member who writes poetry. She doesn't share her poetry a lot, she's very private. But this is one of the poems that she wrote. And it says, what if the world we lived in was without hate? What if there was no inequality? What if justice was served for all? What if there are no divisions based on income, race, gender, religion, or sexual orientation? What if we agreed on climate protection? What if we agreed people have basic rights to live? And what if we saw each other as another extension of ourselves? We have more in common with one another than we'd like to admit. And in reality, we are the same. We are one. That was written by Sharon Kwong. And boy, those words really do resonate, especially at a time like this. Thank you. I will share that with her. Because it is really hard to say we are here as a united front when we know that people in power don't want unity. They want to break down unity and build a different type of country that not all of us want to live in. There are many ways that you can contact us. Facebook, you can get on our mailing list. You can email us. Obviously, you can reach out directly to any of our board members. Please stay active. Please stay curious. If you have something that you'd like to contribute, we welcome it. And thank you for listening to us and understanding, and hopefully also being part of our mission. And that's the end of our presentation, but we welcome any questions that you might have.
Well, before anything, just a huge round of applause for both of you. We have a good 8 minutes or so for Q&A, so let's open it up if that's all right, and have time for questions here. Yeah, but we'll mess it.
I want to make the announcement. You may know that the plant sale was canceled today. And I talked to a boy that the rest of the gardens, it was mid-30s and raining. It was just too cold to make a plant sale. So we may reschedule for Sunday in June, just so you know.
Thank you. 1.8% is not a very big part of our community. We talked about things that happen culturally, art museums, galleries, arts, food. What specifically do you think our business community could do to help more Asian Americans want to make Duluth their home?
That's a great question. In the past several years, we have actually seen some revitalization in that area. We're so happy that certain businesses are expanding. Like Foodholic is opening up a second site. It's a very popular restaurant in town. A lot of the businesses in town focus on services or food. And of course, we welcome that. Bali, Indonesia, for example, in Lincoln Park. I think part of that is for our community to be able to demonstrate, to the rest of the world, to the rest of the state that, hey, if you come here, we have interest, we have curiosity. We want to be able to share more of your food, and through food, we can learn about each other. And so I just love the fact that people are there. Usually when I go to Foodholic, I'm one of only maybe 2 tables that are Asian. There are so many people in there who are non-Asian eating at Foodholic now. And when I go to Bali, I hardly see anybody who is an APIDA member in there, because the rest of the community has discovered we love Indonesian food. It's incredible, just the expanse. So think about it this way: if your palate is that expansive, maybe your heart can be that expansive. Maybe your mind can be that expansive. And you can take that further and to really, talk to people, encourage others that that don't live in this area to say, hey, you can come and build a business here and it can thrive. And so, that's really one way. A new thing that we actually haven't mentioned is that we worked with a business class up at the Labovitz School at UMD, and these students that we worked with built an APIDA business directory, which we've never had before. So that is a wonderful piece that's also on our website, and you can look for different services, different places to eat. You can actually see who owns an APIDA business here in the Twin Ports. And so part of that is working with our Duluth Chamber, working with the different business groups to say, are there incentives that you might offer, working with the city of Duluth to really expand some of the programs that they have, like, the 1200 fund, to attract more businesses, or really expansion of current businesses.
I've got one more idea. By the way, the business directory is not yet on our website, but we're working on getting that on. If your business has an internship program, I know that it's kind of hard right now for some businesses to kind of dig into the DEI piece. But if your business has an internship program, reaching out to various community organizations to encourage, students, college students to apply, or high school students to apply, I think that goes a long way for them being able to see themselves working in organizations here in the Twin Ports, and maybe see that there's a future for them here. My own child wants to leave right after college, does not want to come back. She just looks around and doesn't see, a lot of people that look like her in the areas that she's interested in. So I think some targeted outreach, and this is an area that's not just for our community. There's a number of communities of color that feel the same way, that when they grow up, this is not the place for them. And I think that there are things that the business community can do to begin to shift some of those perceptions. Representation is important.